everybody, Fred the Pirate here, and I'm here to do a review of Attack on Titan episode 15. So this one's definitely a really interesting episode. So essentially what happens is this episode is Eren is taken by Levi to the Survey Corps headquarters, which is this castle out in this remote area. And so it turns out that the castle's hasn't been used for a very long time because it's not really helpful to the Survey Corps, because it's not near any of the walls and it's not near any of the rivers to help them, get to places near the wall. So it turns out because of that they have to spend a lot of time fixing it up, and we have a couple scenes of them doing that. It turns out that that's where they're going to keep Eren. So Eren asks where he's going to sleep in the castle, and Levi tells him you're going to sleep in the basement again, in case, if you go to sleep and you turn into a Titan, you can be, kept down there and contained. So then, during the course of the episode, Major Hanji shows up, and she's the lady with glasses that we saw last episode, and so she's kind of in charge of doing medical experiments on the Titans. And so she comes to the castle so she can tell Eren that she informs him that she's going to run some medical experiments on him so she can figure out how his Titan powers work, because she's very interested in that. And she also tells him about the experiments that she's running on the two Titans that they captured, and experiments that she had ran on earlier Titans. And so throughout the episode, we kind of see her running these experiments, and it turns out that she has named the two Titans, and apparently she has named the Titans for a leader of this group of cannibals that had lived up in this mountain and who had killed 500 people. And she tells a really gross story about what the cannibals did to people, how they cooked people and all that shit. And we actually see some of the people who are the soldiers who are working with her, some of them throw up when she tells the story. So she decides to name the two Titans after the leader of the group, and so she names smaller 4-meter Titan Shani, and she names the larger 7-meter Titan Bean. And so she runs some experiments on them. She says that at first, the way they run the experiments with the Titans is that first they try to communicate with them and see if the Titans communicate with them back in any way, and this really doesn't go anywhere because the Titans just try to eat them. And then obviously she says they try denying them sunlight, because she says they've noticed that the way the Titans get energy, because they don't have lungs and they don't need to eat things and they don't need water and they don't need to sleep, is that they've kind of deduced that they use sunlight to get energy. So what they'll do is they'll keep them intense without sunlight to see how this affects them. And so they run that experiment and to see kind of how active they go. They noticed that the smaller Titan, that he kind of started getting a little sleepy before the larger one did. It took about an hour without sunlight for the smaller Titan to kind of start closing its eyes. And then he started noticing the larger one took longer. And she's obviously, they also ran experiments on trying to figure out where they're vulnerable. And they also found out through doing these experiments that the larger Titan Bean was kind of a lot more vocal than the smaller Titan Shani. So she's telling Eren all about this, because Eren's actually really interested in this, and he kind of wants to find out more about the Titans. He also really wants to use this as a way to find out more about Hanji and her character. And I think because he's noticed that the other members of the Recon Corps are kind of a little weird. And so he's kind of he's not really sure what to make of them, and I think he's trying to feel them out. And I think he's particularly interested in Hanji because he spends a lot of time with her. And so he kind of asked her, well, how come you feel sorry about with the Titans? Because Hanji does mention that she does feel a little bit bad about harming them. She doesn't really necessarily take a lot of joy in doing it. And she mentioned to Eren that for a long time, when she joined the Servant Corps, that, she really, really hated the Titans, because she had seen a lot of Titans kill her comrades, and she thought of them in the same terms that Eren thought, and she was like, but she mentions to Eren that there was one time where, she kicked the head of a 3-meter Titan, and it was really light, and she said that she noticed that a lot of the body parts of these Titans are really light. She says that normally some things that are as large as the Titans should not be able to be bipedal the way the Titans are if their density matched their size. So it's obvious that even though they're very big, they're not very dense. And so that's like, they're very light. And so she says that kind of opted her to like really start thinking about the Titans in a new way and try to figure stuff out. And so Eren is kind of intrigued about this, and he kind of wants to know more about the Titans, so that way the next day when they run experiments, that he can be more helpful with her. And so hilariously, it turns out that she does tell him everything she knows, but it's pretty much everything that he learned as a cadet. And it turns out that they just spent all night talking about shit that he already knew. And so the next morning when we see him, he's like super sleepy. And she says, well, I know that pretty much everything I told you already knew, but how about we go over everything again, and this time I put my opinions attached to this. But it turns out that they're interrupted by one of, I assume, Hanji's subordinates. And it turns out that during the night when Hanji was going over to the Survey Corps castle to talk to Eren, that it turned out that somebody had killed the 2 Titans. So somebody had killed Shani and Bean. And it turns out that obviously this is a really huge problem, because they need them so that they can get information about them. And it turns out that whoever killed them was like a member of the military, and they had 3D maneuvering gear, but they said the guy got away before they could find out. And so, like, Major Hanji's really tore up about this, because, she really needed the Titan so she could get information. And so this turns out to be a huge problem. And then right when this is happening, and Eren is kind of, like, literally when she finds out about this, like, she's losing her shit, because, like, she really liked the Titans, as much as you can like a Titan. And it turns out Commander Erwin comes up to Eren, and he mentions to Eren, like, he gets right up close to his ear, and he whispers, like, who do you think the real enemy is? And, like, Eren's really shocked by this, and he turns around, and, like, Commander Erwin is, like, super mysterious, and it's like, honestly, it almost seemed like there was something almost sinister about the way he did this. Like there's just something, like the way the music was playing when he walked away, and, like, and just how shocked Eren was by this, that, like, it almost gave this feeling, like, that there was something sinister about it. Because also in the episodes, besides focusing on Hanji and Eren talking to each other, we get a scene where Erwin is talking to one of his subordinates, and he's talking about the plans he has for things. Now he's, planning to go back behind the walls and make a command post, and that he also needs to get some more recruits from the rookies. So we know he's going to do that. And I think every time that we've seen Erwin, at least in this episode, it seems like there's a lot more to him than what's on the surface. And, like, so it seems like there's a lot going on there. So I think it's apparent that there's a little bit more to him than what we think. So definitely going to keep an eye on that. So that's pretty much what happened with this week's episode. It was really informative and kind of disturbing sometimes, because you get to see things be stabbed. And so that's a very interesting episode. Learned a lot about the Titans. Definitely looking forward to next week's episode, where I believe Eren is finally taken behind the wall, and we also have to focus on the other rookies, and they have to figure out what they want to do, and division they want to go into, and so that'll definitely be really interesting. So definitely looking forward to next week's episode. So I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on this week's episode, so make sure to comment, rate, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys again next time.